A fiery showdown last night. The GOP candidates faced off in their final 2015 debate.
The top candidates were friendly with each other, but there were several clashes between Donald Trump and Jeb Bush and between Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio.
Honestly, I think Jeb is a very nice person. He's a very nice person, but we need tough people. We need toughness. We need intelligence, and we need tough. Jeb said when they come across the southern border, they come as an act of love.
You said in September 30th that ISIS was not a
am I
not
talking or are you talking, Jeb?
I'm talking right now. I'm talking.
You can go back. You're not
I'm
talking.
talking.
You interrupted me,
September
Jeb.
30th,
Are you going to
you said
apologize, Jeb? No. Am I allowed to finish?
Yes, one at a time.
Excuse
Go ahead,
me. Am I allowed to finish?
Go ahead, Mr. Trump.
So,
Little of your
again,
own medicine there,
I know you're trying to build
Bush,
up your energy,
please,
Jeb, but it's not working
one at a
very
time.
well.
Yeah.
Look.
Donald, you're not going to be able to insult your way to the presidency. That's not going to happen. And I do have the strength.
There was one commentator that put it this way, that for Marco to suggest our record's the same, it is like suggesting the fireman and the arsonist have the same record because they're both at the scene of the fire. He was fighting to grant amnesty and not to secure the border. I was fighting to secure the border. And this also goes to trust. Listen, on campaign trails, candidates all the time make promises. You know, Marco said he learned that the American people didn't
Senator
trust
Cruz,
the federal government.
No, Dana,
he
you need to ask
campaigned in Florida promising to lead the fight against
Ted Cruz
amnesty.
support legalizing
He
people that are in this
campaigned
country
promising
illegally?
to lead the fight against
Ladies
amnesty.
and
then he
gentlemen,
did
this is
exactly
why
that.
the American
Senator Cruz,
This is an
can you
important
answer that
point.
question, please?
Does Ted Cruz rule out ever legalizing people that are in this country illegally now?
Senator Cruz?
I have
Will you
never
rule-
supported legalization.
Do you rule it out?
I have never supported legalization, and I do not intend to support legalization.
Rebecca Berg from RealClearPolitics is here. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So there were a lot of back and forth clashes, especially between Donald Trump and Jeb Bush. At one point, Bush calling Trump a chaos candidate. Was it enough of a performance by Bush to gain some traction following this debate?
Well, I guess we'll have to see. Jeb Bush has a lot of ground to make up, not only nationally, but in the state of New Hampshire, where he is now focusing his campaign. He's trying to mount a comeback there starting in the next few days, just hoping to capitalize off of this performance in the debate against Donald Trump. And certainly Jeb Bush has improved. I mean, this was a far cry from his first debate, where on the stage he seemed awkward, out of his depth when he tried to take on Donald Trump. Now he seems very comfortable taking on Donald Trump, but I wonder if maybe it is too little too late, and too late in the game to change voters' minds who have already left him.
Yeah, well, he managed to make himself part of the post-debate conversation, which is what everybody always talks about. You got to get those zingers in, right? Also part of the post-debate conversation, the clashes between Ted Cruz and Marco Rubio. That was almost the debate within the debate. Who came out on top?
Well, that's actually a great question, and I don't have an answer to that yet. I think that they both, for different parts of the Republican Party, came out on top. What they basically embodied was some of the most potent policy disagreements in the Republican Party right now. You saw them diverge on immigration. You saw them diverge on national security and foreign policy in really fundamental ways. And so they're appealing to different impulses within the Republican Party. Ted Cruz, a more, what Marco Rubio is calling a more isolationist foreign policy, less of an open mind on immigration reform. He wants to close the borders, essentially. And Marco Rubio, more of an open mind on immigration reform down the line, but also wants to be more engaged internationally and militarily. And so these are some very fundamental differences, and I think the question of who won the debate will come down to who do voters agree with in the Republican primary.
Well, Rebecca, this was the first time Rubio was actually really pushed on immigration during a debate. How do you think he did?
Well, he did well trying to deflect, but this is going to be a question that haunts him in the Republican primary moving forward. What he did was he tried to move the conversation to national security, and that was very smart for him because that's central to his campaign. And he also tried to call into question Ted Cruz's history on the subject, saying that Ted Cruz had in the past supported some level of legalization for undocumented immigrants. And in fact, during the Gang of Eight bill in the Senate in 2013, Ted Cruz did offer such an amendment, contrary to what he said in the debate last night. So they both have a little bit of a history here. Marco Rubio, though, tied more in the minds of GOP voters to that Gang of Eight immigration bill, and so that's still going to be a very tricky thing for him to deal with.
So let's talk about Chris Christie and Rand Paul. They also had some fireworks, particularly about a no-fly zone. Chris Christie saying that he was in favor of a no-fly zone. Rand Paul saying, well, if Russia violated a no-fly zone, would you then shoot down a Russian plane? And Chris Christie said, yes, I would. And then it went back and forth. And I think Rand Paul said, if you're in favor of World War III, Chris Christie's your candidate. But this morning on CBS This Morning, Chris Christie was not backing down from that at all. I'm wondering if you think there's going to be some fallout from that sort of tough talk.
Actually, I think we might see the opposite. Last night, Frank Luntz, the GOP pollster, conducted a focus group during the debate, and he found that his focus group members actually converted over to Chris Christie more than any other candidate except for Ted Cruz. Those were the two winners of the debate in his focus group. In an election where the focus has turned in national security and foreign policy, we're seeing these strong-sounding, strong-talking candidates doing very well. That's some of Donald Trump's appeal, and Chris Christie is trying to tap into that as well.
Before we let you go, Donald Trump said he wouldn't launch a third-party bid. Was it enough to reassure the party?
Well, I don't know if it's ever enough with Donald Trump because he can change his mind on a dime, right? And he has before. He signed the GOP pledge that he wouldn't run as a third-party candidate and then recently decided, well, maybe that wasn't actually going to be the case. So I think what we see is the party taking him at his word for now. We've seen Reince Priebus say that he believes him, Communications Director Sean Spicer echoing that message. But Donald Trump is a little bit unpredictable, so we'll just have to wait and see.
Yep, a little bit of a wild card there. Rebecca Berg from Real Clear Politics, thank you so much.
Thank you.